Hey everyone, so since my last video for the Lapras lineup, I decided to try out some different lineups for Go Battle League. So long story short, Arrow was streaming his Go Battle League matches and he went up against an opponent named Shrinky. And Shrinky pretty much ran the same line I did with the Lapras, but except replacing Lapras with Bash Blastoise. And from that matchup, Taco actually mentioned that Bash Lapras has a lot of good matchups against Azumarill. And then Twassel told me about it, so I looked into it myself and decided to give it a shot. So shout out to those three guys. I'll link their Twitch streams down below. This lineup definitely wouldn't have been possible if those discoveries weren't made. So I ran it initially in the lead with Registeel and Bastiodon in the back. I eventually subbed in Deoxys-Defense for Registeel just to give me some additional options against steel counters, and then I eventually subbed in Registeel for Bastiodon with Deoxys-Defense. So I have different variations of this team, but the big thing is that Blastoise in the lead is something that stayed constant throughout. I was able to gain about 150 points using this lineup, and this was over the course of about 3 days. So when I go over the footage, I'll talk more about how this lineup works. Okay, so the big thing right here with Blastoise is that landing Skull Bash really flips a lot of matchups. So I'm going to swap in my Registeel against this Hypno lead just because both Bastiodon and Registeel have pretty solid matchups here, and so this video is definitely sped up a little bit, so that's why the water guns look quite fast. But this is going to be a great situation for Registeel, mainly because unless this Hypno is running Focus Blast, it should be able to win this matchup, but I'm going to have the shield right here, and this is actually going to put me in a tricky situation, because if this Hypno decides to stay in this matchup, they potentially can take me down with just the confusion, just because it is a Shadow Hypno. So I was able to win lead right here, and then this Alolan Muk is going to do quite a bit, and then I come in with the second tank. So the big thing is creating this team where offsets with two tanks can really take out a lot of Pokemon that are weak to the tanks, especially when I'm using Reggie as a safe swap. So as you can see there, that Skull Bash did a ton of damage, and it was kind of unexpected. I'm going to go for a second one right here. So what I realized right here is that even though Hydro Cannon would be enough at this range, I want to get that defense buff, and so now I have +4 defense into my defense stat, and then I'm just going to go straight Water Gun down for this Alolan Muk, and then I'm just going to go straight Smackdowns. Because I'm not going to get to 3 Smackdowns in time, it's not really worth me dropping the charge move. I'm able to just use Smackdown straight and take out this Alolan Muk. So this was actually one of my first matches using this lineup, so it's a little clunky at first, but as you can see, there's already a lot of potential of countering Azumarill, because otherwise running Ice Beam and Hydro Cannon, it's going to completely get walled by Azumarill. So a lot of Azumarills early on were running Hydro Pump, but as I'm going throughout the days, there's definitely been more play rough, and so I don't know if that's, I doubt it's the increased usage of my Blastoise particularly, but it might be increased usage of Lapras, and just Azumarill mirrors in general. I think Azumarill running play rough in the lead can definitely be pretty crucial against other Azumarill leads too. So it makes sense for a lot of Azumarills in the lead to do that. So they end up switching out, realizing that they're probably going to lose that matchup. So what I'm going to do right here is shield the Focus Blast, and then because my opponent is ahead on energy right here, I'm going to bait with a Flash Cannon, and I do land the bait luckily. The main thing is it's not the end of the world if I don't land the bait, because I still need a Flash Cannon to take out this Registeel anyway, so it's not wasted damage per se. So they are able to, I'm able to kind of get to a point where I could throw this Flash Cannon, and then my opponent's probably going to bring in Altaria. I'm getting ready for this Registeel to switch back in, but a lot of people end with Altaria in the back, and that's really proven to be huge for my team. I'm just anticipating a sack swap at this point, but they don't look like they're attempting one, or they might be trying to time it. I'm just going to go straight Smackdown at this point, and then I kind of anticipate the Registeel coming in, and then they decide to exit the match right there. So kind of in that Azumarill lead, it's definitely very strong. So Stunfisk is definitely a trickier one to deal with for this line, because Stunfisk counters both Registeel and Bastiodon on the back. And so what I really need to do is stay in with this Blastoise, and Blastoise is doing quite a bit of damage with that Water Gun because it's super effective against that Stunfisk, but this charge is going to hurt too. So what I actually do is spend both shields, and pretty much most Stunfisk don't end up baiting with Mud Bombs at this point. So if you let one of the discharges go, which you can survive, the problem is now they could just use a Mud Bomb to take you out. So they go for a quick swap into Altaria, and the main reason why I dropped this Hydro Cannon is because I don't have time to swap fast enough, so that does pause the Dragon Breath for a quick second, and it allows me to just switch out. Does it make a huge difference? Not really. I mean, obviously the Hydro Cannon is not going to be enough, and shields are down, so it's not going to do that much. But I didn't want that Altaria to be able to farm a little more energy off of me. The Stunfisk is really low, so I'm not too worried about it. And then I'm going to be able to throw some flamethrowers right here, and hopefully I put it close enough to Flash Cannon range where it looks like it is. It's at this point. And then now I'm going to bring in my own Registeel and take out the Registeel. The big thing really with this strategy is you want to get rid of the steel counter if you can early on, especially in the lead. And a lot of times that's a Azumarill for a lot of people. I am going to drop this Flash Cannon right here because I am still ahead on energy, so I should be able to get to this Flash Cannon first, and then I'm able to take out the Registeel. So yeah, Blastoise in the lead is just, it catches Azumarill and it catches Registeel. You can beat Registeel with shields up. And then you can beat Azumarill in all shielding situations if they're running Hydro Pump and Ice Beam. With Play Rough, you only win the one shield. However, they're going to have to double shield if they want to win that one. So it's not a bad situation for Azumarill to spend both shields against a Blastoise, in my opinion. Blastoise really has like zero relevance in Go Battle League up to this point, but since I've decided to use Skull Bash, it's actually proven to be pretty strong. It's actually great against the Mud Boys too. So right here, we're going to see what it looks like going against this wireless lead. Or just really any drag in general. So I do switch straight away to Registeel, and the big thing here is understanding that I need to win switch advantage for this matchup, because I can't have that Blastoise matchup against that wireless, and then so they quickly go for a switch into Registeel, and here you're going to see the damage that Blastoise can do against Registeel. I am not going to shield, and the main reason behind this is because you need more than a Focus Blast to take out the Blastoise anyway, and because Lock-Ons are doing so little damage, and these Water Guns are just chunking away, I don't need a shield. And, you know, obviously they're going to bait me with a Flash Cannon at this point, or I'm within Flash Cannon range. But as you can see, this Water Gun's just going to really stack up. They go for a quick swap. I'm kind of anticipating it. And so I go for a quick swap as well with my Bastiodon. The big thing here is I'm not going to farm up energy on this Bastiodon because I still have a little bit of health on my Blastoise. And so this Registeel is low enough that they can't just try to farm me down with Lock-Ons, and so they're going to have to drop Charge Move, and so they go for it right now, but at this point, they're not able to string together another Flash Cannon in time before these Water Guns take it out. So Blastoise can take it out right there too. So there's some scenarios. Deoxys-Defense is also a popular one. Because I'm running Double Steel in the back, it's not great to run into Deoxys-Defense. Registeel has an okay matchup against Deoxys-Defense, but they will have switch advantage as well. So what I'm going to do right here is just force shields and just go straight Hydro Cannon. I was hoping to catch potentially a Thunderbolt because this definitely could be the better move to catch, but unfortunately I'm not able to. But so I quickly go for a swap right there because they didn't shield, so now I can lock on farm down. I know I'll take some super effective counters, but this puts me a little bit ahead on energy, especially if they have their own Registeel in the back. And if they don't, and they have, yeah, so they have their own Registeel in the back, so this is a great situation for me. I was going to say if they don't, it might be a Azumarill, but that's not a terrible situation either. And they let the Focus Blast go. So I'm going to match their shields, and I'm able to get to a Flash Cannon, barely. So this puts me in a good spot because they shield, and they don't, but I would have Blastoise in the back to counter them out. And then Altaria in the back. They don't expect a double steal, so that's going to be GG's right there too. So that Bastiodon is going to be able to just wall off this Altaria completely. Pretty much anyone with the Altaria in the back with this line is going to be able to will pretty much lose in most situations. So going into another situation, Medicham lead. Anytime anyone leads with a fighter, it's actually not a bad situation because this means that your Blastoise match up against it. That's what you really want. The biggest issue really is Toxicroak lead. Medicham's not nearly as bad, depending on the moveset and stuff, but most aren't running Power Punch, so it's a little bit less spammy, and so the Hydro Cannons are definitely faster to get to, I think, than these Dynamic Punches. So I am going to commit this shield here, and just from this point, I can just Water Gun down if I choose to. They go for a quick swap, so I'm going to go and swap to my Registeel because Registeel has a really solid matchup against Umbreon. Potentially, I could have swapped in Bastiodon as well, and I think looking back on it, that's it just really depends on what they have in their back line, to be honest. But that Medicham is pretty low, so I'm not too concerned about it, and yeah, we'll see kind of what they have behind. But I did go for a quick swap with Registeel. I think Bastiodon might be better. Umbreon definitely could flip that matchup if they decide to shield. They are going to bring in their Medicham, and then now here comes the Skull Bash, and so Skull Bash is going to do a ton of damage against Azumarill. Most people don't shield this, and so my opponent, even though they had a shield, won't shield it. More people might shield it after this video. I definitely played quite a few opponents over the course of 3 days, pretty much once every day or so, or maybe more than that. So some of them have started shielding the Skull Bash. But at this point, recognizing that most of that damage was already done for the Skull Bash, I pretty much can just farm down with this Registeel and then go for a quick lock on, a quick Flash Cannon, take out the Azumarill. So that's definitely what you want to do when you lead into a fighter. As I said before, if it's a Toxic Rogue, that's a really hard matchup to go against because it still ends up being Blastoise if they double shield. Okay, so what do you do with Umbreon? Umbreon's not great of a matchup with Blastoise, but also I'd end up safe swapping Bastiodon, which is not usually the best safe swap option, but because Registeel has a much better matchup, especially with shields down the end, I am going to conserve that one instead. And as you can see here too, Bastiodon, just because it's doing neutral damage with smackdowns, because Deoxys-Defense doesn't have that fighting type like a lot of other traditional steel counters, it's going to do quite a bit of damage. And so I am going to shield the Thunderbolt right here, and we're just going to go straight Water Gun down at this point. These Hydro Cannons still definitely do quite a bit of damage, and it's actually a Shadow Zapdos in the back too. Shadow Zapdos is actually solid against both Blastoise and Registeel, but having this much energy is just ridiculous on Blastoise. And so I'm going to catch what ends up being a Drill Peck bait too, which is perfect because that's going to be resisted by Registeel. As you can see, still does a decent amount of damage. This Thunderbolt would definitely chunk away. So right here, what I'm going to do is drop the Focus Blast. And because they're late on the switch, what I'm going to do is try to switch my Blastoise once they're low on energy. So I'm going to keep farming down, and then at this point, this is going to put me pretty low, but I have energy enough for a Flash Cannon, and I go for a quick swap into Blastoise. Now, I can't get hit with a Foul Play, or I guess 2 Foul Plays. I'm going to get hit with 1, but I'm going to survive it. And then now I have a Hydro Cannon that could take out the Zapdos. So even though Zapdos has that electric typing, Shadow or not Shadow, it's still very glassy, and Hydro Cannon hits pretty hard for neutral. Right, so Melmetal lead, what do you do? So Melmetal lead is kind of tricky. The biggest reason why Melmetal lead isn't great is because if they're running Melmetal in the front, they might have anti-steel counters in the back, right? Because most people aren't using Melmetal as their anti-Regi counter. It does okay against Regi, it does pretty solid against Bastiodon, but if that's their only counter steel types, then they're in trouble. So this is usually their anti-flyers, so if they have anti-flyers in the front, then they probably have more like grass types or anti-tanks in the back. So what I do is I am able to get both shields off of this Melmetal. This is going to do quite a bit of damage, but now they're debuffed, so their next superpower is not going to be enough to take me out if they decide to go with one, and they end up going with Rock Slide instead. Kind of interesting, because at that point they might as well just commit to the superpower, but either way, they bring in their Azumarill, so it makes sense. It's their anti-steel type, and Registeel has an okay matchup here, but I do have that Blastoise in the back, so I'm going to let this go. And it's probably going to be an Ice Beam, and that's fine because they are able to farm me down with a few bubbles. And then now what I'm going to do is probably shield this right here and then go for a Skull Bash. At this point, they're probably not thinking that I can actually take out their Azumarill, but they end up swapping in their Umbreon. So that's a very interesting team composition, because I'm really not sure what they do against a fighter lead, because they can't swap in Azumarill because then they lose their only counter to it. But either way, Bastiodon's going to have a pretty solid matchup against Umbreon, especially with shields down. It's definitely going to be closer because this Umbreon's definitely going to be able to spam out the foul plays. I am anticipating a swap right here, and so that is what ends up happening right here. And then I'm going to probably just go straight farm down at this point. And then if they hit me with the foul play, I do have Hydro Cannon ready on my Blastoise in the back. So yeah, Melmetal lead isn't super common. But in those situations with this team comp, you definitely want to stay in for a second and then swap out, of course. Okay, so Haunter lead, very common as well. Blastoise actually does quite well against Haunter with just water guns alone. So as you can see right here, I'm going to shield the charge moves because the charge moves can definitely really build Haunter advantage, and I'm going to drop the Hydro Cannon to force a shield from them. At this point, I can pretty much just straight water gun down. I am going to shield right here, and then I'm going to drop the water gun right here, and I have charge move ready. And it's going to be a Azumarill, and I'm going to drop Skull Bash. most probably won't shield this. It's going to do quite a bit of damage, and then they're going to have to probably... Oh, they actually end up shielding it. Very interesting. I think this might have been a player I played before. I'm not actually sure. It's quite rare for anyone to really shield their Azumarill from Blastoise, but and I didn't see too many Blastoise running Skull Bash myself during this time period, so it might have been a player I played against. But either way, great call by them. But now with Shield Sound, my Registeel has a great matchup against their Registeel, and then unfortunately I wasn't able to get to the Flash Cannon time, but that's okay because my Blastoise is still alive at this point. So what I'm going to do is bring in Blastoise. I remember that Azumarill is pretty low, and so because Registeel is doing so low damage with this lock-ons, this water gun damage can really chunk down. And then now at a full health Bastiodon, even with a Hydro Pump, they're not going to be able to get to 2 Hydro Pumps at a time because they can't hit me with an Ice Beam. It's not going to be enough, and I'm going to be able to get to the Smackdown. So even though Bastiodon definitely weak to water in the back and loses a lot of things, I think the pairing with Blastoise and Registeel in the front can definitely help give a lot more freedom in the matchups. Okay, and then Grass Pokemon are definitely tricky against this lineup. There aren't really any hard counters to Grass, specifically Meganium. Tropius, Venusaur, there's more options there with this team. But I am going in against a Registeel lead, and so what I usually do is shield the first charge move. It's almost always a Focus Blast, and I let the second one go, just because I can survive another Focus Blast, and now I am able to Water Gun down this Registeel, and then now I'll have energy for wherever's coming next. So let's see what it is. It's a Meganium, so I do quickly switch to Registeel because I don't want it to be farmed down by this Meganium. Tricky thing here is really I need to shield this Earthquake. If it is going to be an Earthquake, and it ends up being an Earthquake, they land it. But this is not a terrible situation for me now because this Meganium is low enough for me to start using Smackdowns to kind of take it down with Bastiodon. And I don't think they can get to Earthquake in time, but I'm going to go and just try and see what happens right here. I believe I still end up shielding it. And I guess the main reason why I end up shielding it is because they stayed in so long with Meganium, so that means that they don't have a hard Meganium count in the back. I was able to draw a shield with from the Sableye and then land a Hydro Cannon, which is going to be huge amounts of damage. At this point, I can pretty much just go straight Smackdown and take out the Sableye. That was the animation glitch. I didn't actually have a third shield right there. But yeah, because this Meganium expended all of his energy, I know that I can't get to a Frenzy Plant time, and I was able to farm up some energy to get to that Flamethrower. Okay, so going against Tropius, how do I deal with this? Especially Grass in the lead is very tricky too. Luckily, it's not a Razor Leafer. And then they swap into Whiscash, which is also a hard counter to Registeel. They do end up shielding though, so at this point, I'm going to commit to no shielding. Blastoise has a pretty solid matchup against all the Mud Boys because they do take neutral damage from Water Gun. That's going to just hit kind of hard, and from Hydro Cannon as well. Versus the Mud Boys, at least Whiscash is a little bit harder to deal with because it is throwing neutral Mud Bombs. But Hydro Cannons from Swampert definitely won't deal that much. And so I'm going to let the Mud Bomb go. There's no way they're going to drop the Blizzard anyway, so I know that it has to be a Mud Bomb. Blizzard is going to be resisted, so I'm going to just go straight Water Gun down, and I'll be able to build up quite a bit of energy. Here's the thing. People don't know you're not running Ice Beam. So I throw the Hydro Cannon a lot of times anyway, and they end up shielding. Because the Ice Beam would definitely hurt Tropius because it's double weak to it. And then now I bring the Bastiodon, and then really trying to figure out what they have in the back. Because at this point, because they haven't swapped to it yet, I feel okay. And it ends up being their own Bastiodon. I figure it's another Steel Tank, potentially a Registeel, but Bastiodon makes more sense because they don't want to swap in right away to that. And then right now I'm going to shield right here because I need to keep my Bastiodon alive. And because they were so late to their switch, what I'm going to do now is be able to do a ton of damage with my Blastoise right here. So I'm going to be able to potentially just Water Gun this down. Oh, actually, no, I guess I go straight for the Hydro Cannon. I guess the main thing is I don't want them to farm me down, be able to drop a Flamethrower on me. And now with a shield advantage and with energy farmed up already on this Blastoise, I can take out this Tropius. Had it been a Registeel in the back, it might have definitely been a little bit harder matchup for sure. Okay, and then what do I do in the mirror with Blastoise? So if you end up running into other people using Skull Bash Blastoise, really the big thing, just like Lapras's, is you need to win the CMP. I guess unfortunately in this scenario, my Blastoise actually is has fairly good PvP IV, so I guess my opponent has even better ones, which is definitely impressive because mine's up there as well. But because they weren't able to get that Skull Bash in time, they're going to go for a straight Hydro Cannon, and now I'm going to go for that second Skull Bash to secure the victory. So it's not a bad idea to run with worse PvP IV Blastoise. I do do a quick swap to Registeel because Bastion has a much better matchup, so I want to draw out whatever they have as their back Pokemon, and also I don't want them to farm down my Blastoise with Altaria. And especially because I'm running Skull Bash, they know that they don't have to worry about any Ice Beam, and with the defensive buff, they can really farm for quite a bit. So I do bring in Registeel. This actually works out perfectly because Registeel has a much better matchup against Deoxys-Defense than Bastion does, and then Bastion has a great matchup versus Altaria. So they let that go, bring in the Bastion, and then it's pretty much over there. So I end up swapping on day 2 to a different lineup. So I end up going with Blastoise, Deoxys-Defense, and Registeel instead. So in this situation, I'm going against Asian Milkman, and I guess to my advantage, I did know the lineup he was running. He likes to run Medicham with Munchlax and what was the third one? Oh, Dewgong in the back. And because both Deoxys-Defense and Bastion have really great matchup against Dewgong, I am going to save those, and I want to take out the Medicham because Medicham's really the biggest threat to the team. Munchlax is okay against Deoxys-Defense, but I'm going to go straight farm down at this point. I am going to get debuffed by Icy Wind here, which is going to make these flamethrowers going to hit for much less damage against this Medicham. And so that's not a terrible situation because I am going to be able to hit this Medicham with 2 flamethrowers, which is definitely going to whittle it down quite a bit, and I'm going to go for a quick swap into Deoxys-Defense once my switch timer's up. Pretty much any charge move that this Medicham lands is going to be resisted or do minimal damage like Ice Punch. And then now they bring in the Munchlax, which I kind of expected, and then we're at 2 shields apiece. I am going to save my shields because the counters are going to do a decent amount of damage, and I still have the Bastion on the back to absorb some damage. So he either has to expend all of his energy using a Bulldoze or just go for Body Slams. And so he is going to use 1 Body Slam. I'm going to switch to my Blastoise right after that, so he can't farm me for any additional energy. He does have energy on this Medicham though, and so was able to bait out a shield with Ice Punch, although Ice Punch will still do a decent amount of damage and was able to take out the Munchlax in the last second. So definitely a great way to play against that line if you end up running into it. Again, if you run into a fighter in the lead, you definitely want to stay in with Blastoise. Okay, so like I said, Blastoise is a great matchup with the Mud Boys. These Mud Bombs are going to do a decent amount of neutral damage, and I noticed that they were stringed together up to 2 Mud Bombs right here. So I'm going to have to shield if they match, if they shield this first one. And it's not a bad idea if they do shield, so when my opponent does shield, I'm going to shield right here because now I could just go straight Water Gun down and have quite a bit of energy built up. And then they go for a quick swap into Zapdos. Bastion has a great matchup against Zapdos. That's why I really like Bastion in the matchup against Altaria, against Tropius, against Zapdos. You don't even need a shield. Shadow Zapdos with Zap Cannon might do some damage there. I noticed that on Jim Corn's stream yesterday, but most people probably aren't running that moveset. And okay, so they go in with Registeel right here. I'm going to go in with the Blastoise again. They need to land a charge move to take me out, so I'm going to shield, and then I'm going to throw the Hydro Cannon. The reason why I shield right here is even though I have my own Registeel in the back, or sorry, I guess I have Deoxys-Defense, I am going to drop the Hydro Cannon, and at this point, I don't need to use a charge move. They're going to need to land 2 Flash Cannons, and I'm just going to go straight counter down. I still have the Blastoise in the back to do some additional Water Gun damage too. So once they take out this Deoxys-Defense, I can just come back in with the Blastoise. Yeah, so that's pretty much how Deoxys-Defense has been working. I actually like Deoxys-Defense a lot more in this lineup because it gives me a little more stability in case I don't match up with the fighter in the beginning. Ooh, Lanturn's tough. Luckily, this one's running Water Gun, so I'm going to shield Thunderbolts. They're not going to really need to bait anything. I'm just going to go for double Skull Bash and see how that does. At this point, I'm just going to commit to double shields at this Blastoise and really hope that they don't have anything really strong against the rest of my line in the back. Because they're leading with Lanturn, it makes me think that that's probably their biggest anti-steal counter. And then so it is going to be an Altaria. And so at this point, I don't want to lose switch advantage. So I am going to drop the Skull Bash. And because I dropped the Skull Bash, it actually does quite a bit of damage. Obviously not as much as Ice Beam, But I am able to even force a shield with Hydro Cannon now too. So let's see if I'm able to force a second shield or not, because this could be huge if I force a second shield. They double shield the Altaria with 2 Hydro Cannons hitting him. And this Blastoise is going to be able to absorb all that charge energy. And I'm going to go quickly into... I was going to swap into Deoxys-Defense, but then later I'm realizing that it's actually much better for Blastoise, Bastiodon to stay in with this Haunter. So I'm going to stay in right here. And then this Altaria probably won't even see my DD. Yeah, so... good games right there. So this is a funny matchup. I ran into my friend CCO. He's my teammate as well. And he actually ran into my lineup earlier. However, I didn't reveal the Skull Bash. So this is what happens when your opponent doesn't know you're running Skull Bash in the straight mirror. Like I said, if you land the Skull Bash first, is completely a game changer. He actually didn't even know I was running Skull Bash, so that's kind of pretty funny. I thought he did, so that's why I ended up shielding the first charge move. But after realizing that it was Hydro Cannon, it was able to put me pretty far ahead. Blastoise against the rest of this line is really strong as well, especially if you have a Skull Bash. So if you are in the mirror situation, even if your opponent is running Skull Bash, if you land that Skull Bash first, you're in a really good spot. And so I was able to draw a shield, and then now I'm just ahead in health compared to my opponent right here. And he does do a really great swap into Bastiodon, because now this is going to do quite a bit of that was really resisted Rock Slide. And then I was able to build up a little energy because I know this Bastiodon's a little bit more ahead on energy, so I don't really want to lose out too much, because if I swap in right away, this Bastiodon will have energy over my Bastiodon. But at this point, I know that I comfortably can win this mirror, and then so I'm going to just go charge up a little bit more extra, and then I think at this point I'm just going to commit to a farm down, because it's going to ensure that my opponent can't really farm me down too much with Deoxys-Defense, and that's going to whittle down the switch clock, and I go in with my Deoxys-Defense and am able to finish him off. And then I believe he quits right here. So if you do run into that mirror, something to think about. Ran into Tribe Guy running Gallade lead. So Gallade lead is definitely really tricky, because it does really well against Blastoise with the Leaf Blades. It does pretty solid against Deoxys-Defense, and it does really well against Bastiodon in the lead, because if you swap into it, well, one, the Smackdown is going to resist it, and also the close combat is going to do a ton of damage. So one-shot the Bastiodon and can still swap out. Yes, Gallade is definitely a tricky Pokemon to use to go against in general. Yeah, so at this point, I'm thinking my best chance is just farm as much energy as I can off of this Azumarill, and luckily it's not running Play Rough. So I am going to run throw a Hydro Cannon right here, and then trying to farm up more energy for another Hydro Cannon. I'm going to have the shield, and it's going to be an Ice Beam, unfortunately, but that is what it is. And then now I'm going to have to drop 2 Hydro Cannons on this Gallade. So obviously these Leaf Blades are really going to hurt, but I'm hoping that I can get to an Hydro Cannon before they get to another Leaf Blade. And then really what I was really worried about was a Registeel in the back, hoping that was Altaria. It was a Registeel. So honestly, after this matchup, it was a great matchup and great plays by Tribe Guy. I realized that I think I need the Registeel in the back instead. Bastiodon, as great as it is in a lot of matchups, against the Registeel, it's just terrible, especially with shields down. Even with shields up, it's not a great situation. Had I had a Registeel, I would have definitely had a slight chance in that matchup. So that's going into my third and final iteration of this team, and I am running Blastoise, Deoxys-Defense, and Registeel instead. And so Registeel in the back, I end up enjoying much more. And so I do shield the first charge move from Azumarill every time, because they almost never bait with Ice Beam. Potentially it's Play Rough or it's Hydro Pump, but either way, you want to shield the first one before you get the Skull Bash. You don't have to shield the second one because you have the defense boost. I do end up saying here, because I have Deoxys-Defense in the back, and I want to absorb that damage. And then I am now going to go and farm up quite a bit of energy on this Deoxys-Defense before dropping my own Rock Slide. And because that Azumarill is already chunked away at half health, a Thunderbolt or even Rock Slide at this range actually is pretty threatening. And so I'm going to go in and drop the Rock Slide right there. I'm not going to shield because this is probably going to be an Ice Beam. And then that's okay there. And then I am able to get to another Rock Slide, so it really depends on if they want to keep this Azumarill alive or not. And they let it go. it's going to be Registeel. So this is great because my Blastoise is still around, and so this opponent's going to have to drop a charge move on me, and I'm going to shield, so you're going to have to drop another Flash Cannon. And all this water gun damage is going to do a ton of damage on this Registeel over time. I'm hoping that they end up shielding. They do, so now this puts me in a really great spot because my Registeel in the back just has to get to one Focus Blast, and then I'm able to win this match. They're not going to be able to get to a Focus Blast and a Flash Cannon in time, so they end up conceding the match right there. So yeah, so I definitely enjoyed it a lot more right away because if I was Bastion back, I wouldn't have a chance to win that. And so Jirachi lead. I've been seeing a decent amount of Jirachis lately. I'm not sure if a content creator put out a video on it or just someone saw someone else using it and liked it. So they go in for a quick swap into Altaria. This is definitely an area where I miss having or not having Bastion on my team, because obviously Bastion could lock this matchup in way easier than Registeel. But this is still a positive matchup for Registeel for the most part, unless they decide to double shield. So let's see if they do or not. I probably will have to shield the next Sky Attack if they end up shielding this Flash Cannon. So we'll see if they do that or not, and they let it go. So that's pretty good. And then now they have a Whiscash, and Whiscash is obviously really great against Registeel, but now they're in a really big, in a tricky situation because they need this Whiscash to take out my Blastoise. But I do go for a quick swap with the Hydro Cannon because I didn't want this Whiscash to farm me down too much. And then now I was able to land a Hydro Cannon at least, which is good. But because Deoxys-Defense is not running Psycho Boost, I need that Whiscash to be chipped down quite a bit. And I am going to drop the Flash Cannon right there. They're going to farm me for one mud shot, and then I should be able to secure this matchup, especially with the shield advantage. I believe I shielded this hoping that it was a Blizzard, but it ended up being a Mud Bomb. But at this point, I know that the second one definitely is a Mud Bomb. And then I should be able to take it out after one Rock Slide and a few counters. So definitely Jirachi lead is a good situation for Blastoise as well because that water gun damage is really great, and then also if they're running Doom Desire, it's going to be resisted too. So you have to watch out for if they try to land a Psychic or a Dazzling Gleam, but besides that, it should be a solid matchup. Shadow Victreebel. Everyone probably knows this line by now. Shadow Victreebel with Bastiodon and Deoxys-Defense or Alolan Marowak in the back. I don't know. I feel like everyone at least probably in rank 7 and above, I have seen this lineup quite a few times. It definitely gives my lineup quite a bit of trouble, especially with the water lead. However, with Registeel actually does pretty solid. And the good thing is my opponent actually ends up shielding and staying in that matchup. So now I'm in a slightly tricky situation because DD is going to be able to do super effective damage. But I do wait out Switch Clock and swap straight to my Blastoise. This is probably going to be a Thunderbolt, but I'm going to let it go. Mainly because I need to save these shields for my Registeel. And so I am going to drop the Hydro Cannon. They need the shield because the biggest thing is, and look at just look at that water gun damage. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to shield this Thunderbolt right here and just go straight lock on farm down. Because if they are running a Bastion on the back end, like I said, they probably would be. This is going to be a great matchup. And then with the shield, I can also shield anything that Victreebel throws. But I'm going to shield the Flamethrower instead. Farm up quite a bit of extra energy, and then my opponent decides to switch because they don't want to be lock on farm down. But with no shields, Shadow Victreebel can't do much, and then I'm going to be able to drop another Flash Cannon on the Bastion. So if you're running into issues with this Shadow Victreebel lineup, definitely feel free to give this lineup a shot. It definitely has a lot of play in it. Shiftry lead, again, grass leads are really tough for this team, especially with Shiftry because they could dump a pretty hard-hitting charge move on my Deoxys-Defense as a safe switch. Luckily, I was able to shield that foul play, and then let's see if they let the Thunderbolt go. They do let the Thunderbolt go, and then now I could go straight Rock Slide and take out this Azumarill. I am down a shield, but at this point, I'm going to let this charge move go, and it ends up being an Ice Beam, so that's pretty good for me. And then they're probably going to throw another one. I'm going to let this go as well. So the big thing is I'm going to just run my Blastoise and just go commit to, for the most part, kind of a farm down. I'm probably going to drop one Hydro Cannon. My opponent actually ends up going Ice Beam again, which is kind of odd. I'm surprised they didn't go Play Rough or Hydro Pump. And then they go for another Ice Beam too. So I was really wondering if this was like a single move Azumarill. Probably unlikely at this at rank 9, but especially this late in the stage. But either way, so I was able to drop the Hydro Cannon, and like I said, because a lot of people think you still might be running Ice Beam, they have to shield. So I was able to bait out shield, and then now luckily it was a Vigoroth in back. Even if it was a Registeel, I would have an energy lead and shield advantage, so I would be able to win that matchup too. I'm going to just shield this just to be safe in case of a play rough, foul play, and my opponent does quit right there. Okay, so going into Altaria leads are definitely tricky. Altaria leads with a grass in the back, even harder, right? So they're hard counting you in the front, they have counters for you in the back. So it's definitely not comfortable in general to switch in Deoxys-Defense into Altaria, because that Altaria can beat you, especially with the energy lead, and just in general, Altaria with shields does pretty well against Deoxys-Defense because those counters are resisted. And so I go into the Deoxys-Defense mirror. This is not too bad, to be honest, and the main reason behind this because I'm going to be able to put this Deoxys-Defense pretty low, and then now I'm going to be able to farm it down with my Blastoise. And hopefully I could get to potentially a Skull Bash to really threaten the Altaria. But here's where it gets tricky. They're actually running Meganium in the back too. Meganium is super rough against this team, especially, in this matchup, because I can't really threaten it with Ice Beam. However, I just go for Skull Bash just in general. My opponent doesn't shield. That does quite a bit of damage. It doesn't do as much as Ice Beam does, but it does quite a bit of damage. And now at this point, this gives me a win condition against my opponent. Now I could lock on down the Meganium. I am down a shield against this Altaria, but I do have quite a bit of energy to throw at the Altaria, and then now I'm going to be able to hopefully go for 2 flash cannons. It is going to be very tricky as long as they stay in this matchup too, because those Dragon Breaths are going to add up, especially the Sky Attack. My opponent, I'm thinking at this point, is probably going to go for a sack swap. So I'm really ready for it, getting ready, and they do attempt a sack swap with the Meganium. I was able to lock on, farm it down, and then now drop the flash cannon. So definitely a great play by my opponent trying to catch that, and I was ready, but with the flash cannon, but I had a feeling they're probably going to go for that too. Going against Jay's fan right here with Tropius lead. So the interesting thing about this matchup is I actually played Jay's fan like probably every day for every single day I was using this lineup. So he actually is aware I'm already running Skull Bash and knows the general lineup. I did switch out, Deoxys-Defense for Bastiodon or Registeel for Bastiodon, stuff like that. So there's some slight variations, but the general team's the same. So it's very interesting to see how opponents play this if they already know the lineup. Because the big thing is after these videos, people will be able to catch on. So does this still have value? And against a grass lead, it's not bad. So right here, what I'm going to do is go for the Skull Bash. And because he's not running Razor Leaf variants, I feel a little more comfortable in this matchup, hopefully getting to that Skull Bash. And so I was able to get to it. If it was Razor Leaf variant, then definitely not able to, right? So he is going to have to drop a Leaf Blade at this point because he doesn't want to take a Hydro Cannon at that range. Obviously, Ice Beam is better in that situation, but, we can't run 3 charge moves, unfortunately. So at this range, I'm able to get quite a bit of farm on this Tropius and then drop a flash cannon. So that's what I do. Farm up a little extra. Now I have extra energy going into whatever's coming up next, and it's Deoxys-Defense. So this is definitely tricky, but with energy, Registeel has an okay matchup against Deoxys-Defense because you can take it out with 2 flash cannons. My opponent does do a quick swap right here, so this actually gives me a win condition because now my opponent has to drop a charge move on my Deoxys-Defense. This means that he won't have energy right away to take out my Registeel, and then now I'm able to get to a flash cannon beforehand. And yeah, so that was pretty much the match. Like I said, this team got me quite a bit of points over the course of 3 days, and I know that Great League is pretty much wrapping up in pretty much a day or so, but I wanted to get this video out there in case people want to give this a shot when Great League comes back around later this season or for next season as well. It's really great to just see Blastoise have any relevance at all in Great League, mainly because it's overshadowed by a lot of the other water types, but now Blastoise actually has quite a bit of relevance in my opinion. I also want to give a big thank you to all of my patrons. So my limited top 2 patron tiers actually sold out in the first 24 hours, so I'm really grateful for everyone that signed up. I'm definitely going to expand those tiers in the future, but for the time being, I want to work with this initial group to make sure that I have everything flushed out before I introduce new members into those tiers. I do have spots in my unlimited $5 tiers, so if you're interested, I still provide a lot of exclusive content to that $5 tier. They did get a sneak peek into this team as well ahead of time. I'm going to definitely be working on some Ultra League lines, so stay tuned for that. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, and I'll see y'all next time.